I've been convicted in the last handful of years ago. Have I spent more time talking about him than talking to him?
That is singer and songwriter as well as author Matthew West, our guest on this week's edition of Conversations from Studio 5. His song, Don't Stop Praying, was an anthem for people to pray and to not give up. Well, that song is the inspiration for a book.
So, first off, you were a few months ago named Songwriter of the Year, correct? Songwriter Artist of the Year. How did that feel?
It felt like sometimes they have elections and they're like demanding a recount. I kept thinking they're going to do some sort of a recount. That's how, everybody has imposter syndrome, I guess. I don't even know what the definition of that is, but it always just sounds right. Like one of these days, somebody's going to be like, he's not really a good songwriter or something. But in all seriousness, it was an honor, to be recognized among the songwriting community, because that's how I started my career. Before I had a record deal, I was a songwriter, and that community is very important to me. And there's incredible songwriters up and down Music Row, so it was an honor to be recognized for sure.
We're talking, it looks like 38 number one songs, more than 275 cuts across genres. When you hear those numbers, what do you think?
I think about all the bad songs.
Oh, no, do you really?
Yeah, I'm not trying to be the glass half empty guy, but I think about, the amount of songs that you write versus the amount of songs that actually see the light of day. When I hear numbers like that, it reminds me of all the sweat equity, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that theory of like 10,000 hours to master any craft. And so I've put in some hours, and I think of, we always joke about, like, imagine how many songs went number 2 or number 3, like, right? Nobody has a number 3 party.
True.
But I'm thankful, man. It's been incredible. And, I think the thing if I'm proud of anything, it's that all my songs are hopefully pointing people to Jesus. And that's been my mission, and I think God honors when you give your gifts back to him. And then you let him take care of the rest. That's been my mission from day one.
One of the songs you've done that we've talked about before, but I'd like to talk about again, is Don't Stop Praying. What gave birth to that song? Yeah,
that song, there's somebody in my life that I've been praying for a very long time, that my family's been praying for a very long time. And if you've ever had to persevere in prayer for someone or something for a long time, and maybe your faith starts to feel tested, you start to let doubt creep in and wonder, like, are my prayers just kind of bouncing off the ceiling? God, are you really hearing me? And because you're not seeing the result that you think you should be seeing. And the song was really inspired by watching my parents, like the way that they persevere in prayer. And my mom and dad are prayer warriors. Matter of fact, like, I got a text from my mom before this interview just saying, hey, I'm praying for you today. And so when you see what a prayer warrior looks like, it makes you want to be like that. You know what I mean? Like, I want people to say about me what I say about them. Like, man, that guy, I know he's spending time with Jesus, And then we've also we started getting prayer requests at our concerts from people who come into the concerts, and we put a prayer wall out in the lobby, and people walk in and they fill out a little prayer tag and tell me what they're praying for. And I tell you what, man, that's called perspective. Everybody's fighting a battle. And so I wanted to write an anthem that inspired people to persevere and pray, to not give up. And then on a very personal note, I've spent so much of my life talking about Jesus that I've been convicted in the last handful of years ago. Have I spent more time talking about him than talking to him? And starting to just take an honest look at my own prayer life and going, man, am I reading my Bible just to get a song idea today? Lord, help me. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Am
absolutely.
I doing more interviews about faith than actually talking to my creator today? And so even talking to you right now is reminding me that when this interview's over, I got to go make sure that I'm taking care of first things first. So those all kind of were swirling around me as I was sitting down and putting pen to paper to write that song.
Wow. And now we have a book, Don't Stop Praying. The God Who Hears is Just a Breath Away. So was this book, song inspired? What happened?
Yeah, so a lot of times I'll write a song. The crazy thing about telling a story in a song is you got to do it in 3 minutes. And at different points in my music career, I've finished a song and I've felt like there's more to unpack there. Do you know what I mean? And that's probably because I'm a preacher's kid and there's that, that communicator in me that wants to come out even when I'm done singing the song. And so this was one of those songs where, you talk about the thousands of prayer requests that I've received and scooped up as I've traveled around the country. My mom puts them in like this big scrapbook for me, and I keep them in my studio. Yeah. And so I'm flipping through these prayer requests from people and just praying for people, and just started thinking, man, what does it look like for me to do a 40-day journey, taking an honest look at my prayer life, examining some of the things that keep me from praying, examine some of the tricks of the enemy and how he's tried to build a separation between me and God, and how can I go deeper in my prayer life. And so that was the genesis of the book, was like taking that 3-minute song and then unpacking it and inviting people to take a journey with me to go, there's no more important conversation than with God. How can we go deeper in that?
Take us inside the pages. What's at least one of the lessons you're unpacking for people?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind, just as we're talking, was there's been so many people who've come up to me and shared how like they're in need of a breakthrough. Yeah, and so there's a chapter in the book about praying breakthrough prayers. You know what I mean? And just believing that the God who made Jericho walls fall, the God who split the sea in two, like the God who did miracles. I think one of the things I wrote about in the book is how sometimes it feels like that's like a different movie or something. Do you know what I mean? Like the God of the Bible versus the God of today. But I had to put in this book the miracles that I'm seeing as I'm traveling around the country, right? Like I had a family come to my concert last weekend, and they had 2 little boys, and they said, do you remember us? And I always hate that question because it's like, I met a lot of people, but they said 5 years ago, we asked you to pray for our little boy, and he's battled cancer, and said, we're here tonight, and this is our little boy that you prayed with, and he just finished his chemo, and he's healthy and he's healing, and the Lord's, and I hear stories like that. Another lady came up to me on this tour, and she said, a year ago, I was told that I would not make it to the end of the year, but I have continued to pray. She said, I've been listening to Don't Stop Praying. And she said, I'm here tonight, and I'm celebrating God's faithfulness. And so, sometimes, man, I've wondered, like, is the God of the miracles in the Bible still do those kind of miracles today? And I wrote those stories, and, those stories aren't in the book because those just happen, but those are just examples of like, keep praying for breakthrough. Breakthrough might look different than we think. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like they were marching around those walls of Jericho. They probably wanted it to happen faster, right? But let's not miss the main point of the story, is that our God still does miracles and our breakthrough's coming.
Yeah, hearing you talk, I'm reminded that just last week I was talking to Tim Timmons, and he marked his arm with the X every day, and he goes, I think it was diagnosed with cancer, given 5 years to live 25 years ago.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. I love that story, and I got to see a screening of the movie that's coming out. It's awesome.
It is phenomenal. Yeah. Phenomenal indeed. So what happened in Matthew West's life for you to realize the power of prayer?
Man, what hasn't happened? I've seen a 13-year-old preacher's kid come to know Jesus and have a faith of his own, and not just a family connection. It wasn't just a family business anymore, right? It was really from the earliest memory of just literally feeling God knocking at the door of my heart as I watched the Billy Graham crusade, which is crazy because yesterday I had lunch with his son, Franklin Graham, which is crazy. But, I've seen God's faithfulness. I've seen, we've done interviews in the past. We've talked about, I've had different physical setbacks, vocal cord surgery, wondering if I'd ever sing again. Just surrendering my dreams in the midst of obstacles and going, all right, Lord, I'm going to trust that if this dream goes away, that you have a new dream for me. So I've seen restoration. I've seen his blessing in my marriage with my wife of 22 years. I've seen his faithfulness through difficult pregnancies that my wife had, watching my daughters growing up. You know, I've joked that when people say, what inspired Don't Stop Praying? I'm like, I got 2 daughters. That's what inspired. But I mean, just, I see his fingerprints all over my life. You know, there's a song I wrote on my Don't Stop Praying album called God's Hand. And it's all about just like, it actually was inspired by a car accident that I had. And I wrote the song the next day because my car spun out of control and during a rainstorm. And the police, when they came on the scene, they were like, there's only one way to explain how you're still here. And I said, God's hand. I said, God's hand. And so, I mean, when I think about that, I think about my whole life. I'm like, man, thank you, Lord. And that's one of the important parts of the book too. Prayers of gratitude.
Yes.
Right? When we start our prayers with gratitude, it changes what our prayer requests become too, you know? So
I like that. I like that. You've also launched a podcast.
Yeah. I don't know
Not
why.
busy enough?
What am I doing?
Tell us about the Matthew West podcast. What can we expect?
We do episodes every Wednesday. We actually launched it. So the reason I launched it was because I had a bunch of time on my hands during the pandemic. When all our concerts got canceled, I was like, I gotta do something, you know? and I've always, you know, I'll be honest with you, like, I love doing interviews with you, but I don't always love being like, it's like, I get tired of talking about me, you know what I mean? I'm not that interesting, but I am interested in what other people's stories are. And that's where, you know, I think my curiosity gets a chance to, I get to scratch that curiosity itch and talking to other people. And so we've had all different sorts of guests on talking about and hearing their story. And it's not just celebrities, it's just everybody. If I hear a compelling story, I'm like, hey, I want you to come on and share your story. So my dad has his own segment on the podcast too called Dad Vice. And he shares the scripture. And so we always have fun. Every Wednesday we do a new episode.
And music.
Yeah, lots of stuff on the podcast. So it's fun. But I started it during the pandemic when I had a ton of time. And then we went back on tour and I'm like, oh. So sometimes I'm in the back of the tour bus like, hey everybody, welcome to the like trying to figure out how to squeeze this episode in.
I like it. Beautiful. So as we're watching this, we're sitting in a new year, 2026. What's a prayer for the year and what's something new we can expect from you in the year?
That's a great question. This is the time, you know, where I've just come out of that end of year kind of, I always take time in the quiet of the holiday when I'm finally off of my last tour date to reflect, look at the year that was. And I always ask the Lord to give me, you know, maybe it's because I'm a songwriter, like I feel like he'll talk to me in themes, you know. There's one, this might sound so basic, but right now I'm singing this new song that I wrote and it says, I used to think grace was a ladder that every sinner had to climb. If only I could just do better, I could earn it over time. Tried to work my way to good. The trouble is I never could. But then you showed me just exactly how grace works. And the song talks of the heartbeat of the song says, I'm not loved because I'm worthy. I'm loved because you're good. And so as I'm starting this new year, my tendency is to start like I'm just busting out of the gates like the Kentucky Derby, you know, and just get after it. Cause that's what I do. Like I chase, I accomplish, I set goals, I crush it. But I'm feeling like the Lord's putting on my heart like this message of resting and not trying to accomplish because then I think I'll be good enough in God's eyes, but to rest in who I am in Him on my best and on my worst day, and to rest in the true gift of God's grace. Like I'm loved because of Him, because of He's good, not because of anything good I've done. And so maybe that message of rest, you know, will come back to me in the moments when I start speeding up, going, I got to do more for God. You know what I mean? And it's good, you know, faith without works. Rich Mullins said it's like a song you can't sing. It's about as useless as a screen door on a submarine. So we got to get after it. We get one shot. We want to make the most of it. Right. But I don't want to get ahead of God or had the wrong motivations in what I'm trying to accomplish. I want to rest in his goodness and rest in his grace.
You can snag Don't Stop Praying. The God that hears is just a breath away wherever you get your reading material. Matthew also has a single. It's called Good. You can find that wherever you stream your music. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of Conversations from Studio 5. We appreciate you making this your weekly destination for uplifting interviews with a strong focus on faith. Now, for more interviews and lifestyle in the entertainment world, be sure to visit our YouTube page. You can do that simply by searching Studio 5 with Efrem Graham. Hope you'll join me right here next week on the podcast. Bye-bye.